Okay, good morning everyone and happy Monday. Okay, so today is our last area and perimeter activity. Okay, and because it's our last one, I've got a nice bit of a design challenge for you today. Okay, and because it's a little bit bigger than the last two, we're not going to do an area talk today. Okay, we're going to get straight into our zoo design activity. Okay, so today, hopefully you all have grid paper left. Okay. Today you have 300 squares to design a new part for a zoo. Okay, now on your grid, this can look like 15 squares down and 20 across, or 12 squares down and 25 across. Okay, so that's 15 by 20, or 15 times 20, or 12 times 25. Okay, that's what it's going to look like on your grid paper. Okay, so when you rule that up, you guys need to use your rulers and grey lead pencils. Okay, so down below there are some different animals that you need to include. Okay, and you can decide on the size and shape of the enclosures for each animals. Okay, so you have to have a careful look at the animals and you have to think about the kind of, like how big they are and the kind of activity they're going to do, because that's going to help you work out how big their enclosure is. Okay, so there's a very basic example there. You wouldn't put the giraffes in the same size enclosure as the frogs. I don't know how the giraffes would go in a tiny little space that frogs need. Okay, and I don't also know how frogs would necessarily go in the same size enclosure as the giraffes. Okay, so each enclosure must have a path running to it. Okay, a path must be 1 square wide. Okay, and all paths must be color-coded red. Okay, now the enclosures don't have to be rectangular or square. Okay, they can be irregular shapes that you guys were starting to use in your park activities last week. Okay, remember you guys had to use squares or rectangles in your house design. Okay, but you could start to use irregular shapes in your park, and today you can do the same. Okay, so once you've added in all the animals, you can add some other touches like water features or garden beds. Okay, you might have like a sitting area and some toilets. Okay, once you've fitted in all the enclosures. Okay, you might have some trees and stuff like that for shade or anything else that you feel like you might need. But you have to have all the enclosures first. Okay, now because you've got rather a large space, you've got a few animals to fit in. Okay. And you've got some pretty cool animals here that you might need to include. You might need to think about how much space you give them. Okay, so you can see, I'm not going to read this out because you guys can go back and watch this video again, and you can pause to see what animals you need. These are all the animals you need. Okay, the numbers in the brackets are how many of them you'll have. Okay, so for example, you've got to try and fit in 3 lines. Okay. Now, once you're done, now this will take a little bit of time, okay? It's not an easy activity, okay? But that doesn't mean it can't be done, okay? You guys all have the capability to do this activity. It will probably just take a little bit of time, okay? You will probably find that you make a couple of mistakes along the way, okay? Like you might get to the end and you've not quite left enough space for an animal or two. That's okay. That doesn't mean it's too hard. That just means that you need to try again. Okay, it's going to take a little bit of creative thinking to work out how you're going to fit everything in. Doesn't mean it's too hard. Okay, once you've finished with your design, these are the things that you need to show down below your grid. Okay, so you need to write the name of each animal, and then you need to have its area and perimeter next to it. Okay, you could draw a table like we showed you with the park and with the house activity. Okay, because this is the 3rd time we've done it, I'm going to leave that on you. Okay, if you're not sure how to do that or like what it might look like, go back and have a look at your previous activities. Okay, they will help you. Okay, you could do it could look exactly the same, except there might be some more parts to your table, and obviously the names of the things in the table are going to be slightly different. Okay, they're going to be the names of the animals. Okay, so when it says 15 or by 20 or 12 by 25, this is what it could look like. Okay, now on your grid paper, you guys have a few more squares than me. Plus you are going to use a ruler to be able to rule up your grid, okay? But it will look something like this. I do apologise for the slightly dodgy line drawing, okay? But this is 12 times 25 because there are 25 squares across and there are 12 squares up and down, okay? You can do the maths to check that I'm right, but 12 times 25 is 300 squares. So if you draw it up properly, like a 25 by 12, you will have 300 squares to work with. If you wanted to do a 15 by 20, it would look something like this. Now I've had to cheat slightly, okay, because I don't quite have the same amount of squares, okay, by using the half square at the top and bottom. That adds together to make another square. So then I get my 15 squares up and down, okay, and I get 20 squares across, okay. Again, you can do the maths to check that I'm right, okay, but 20 times 15 equals 300, so that means that you've got 300 squares to work with, okay. So that's what the outline of your zoo could look like, okay. The rest is up to you, okay. If you're finding, so do not spend, because this is a tricky activity that will just take you time. It's not too hard. You are all capable of doing this. Okay. Do not spend any more than 75 minutes on this. In class, we wouldn't spend any more than 75 minutes doing this. Okay. And this is, you've got a little bit of extra time for maths today because you haven't done a great deal of maths activities in the last few days. Okay. And you've got, we've got our finish to area, and because this is our finish to area and perimeter, okay, so a slightly longer maths activity today, but set your time, once you start doing this, set your timers for 75 minutes, okay, and then finish up, okay, do the best you can in 75 minutes. This activity is very, very possible to finish in 75 minutes, okay. It's just going to take a little bit of time and a bit of creative thinking to make sure everything fits in, okay? Looking forward to seeing, once again, because you guys have done a brilliant job with your design activities so far, looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with, okay? So once you've done with 75 minutes, that's when you can stop and you can work out the area and perimeter of the enclosures that you have done. Do not upload anything without doing the area and perimeter, or we'll send it back to you. Okay, make sure, because that's the whole point of what we're learning to do. We're learning to calculate area and perimeter. If you haven't done that, then you haven't done the activity properly. Okay, good luck. See you all tomorrow for maths.